Hi everyone, and today I really welcome Simon G back to our channel after a very long time. Welcome, Simon G. It's been a few years now that we have recorded.
Hari thank you. Thank you. It's great to be back and to be talking about a subject very dear to my heart, which is compatibility.
I'm so excited. I guess that there's a lot of relationship stuff that's going around these days, and I think two charts can really tell us what energies we bring to each other.
Correct. And yeah, it's a vast topic, and every relationship truly is a fingerprint because every relationship is unique. And just before we launched, you asked me if I use Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, the outer planets. And my answer is yes, because they give us more detail. They allow us to identify more points of that fingerprint to know what the relationship is about. For example, if there is a lot of Uranus in the compatibility, or even in your own chart, say if you have Uranus Venus together, then there is a Uranus talks about suddenness and things that come on very quick. So in a compatibility, it could be like love at first sight kind of feeling, like you instantly are hit by thunder and lightning. And it's very interesting that in Italy and in the romantic, they say, oh, le coup de foudre in French, the strike of lightning. Uranus rules the sky, and right, so lightning, and so it's interesting. Then if you have a Neptune configured with your strongly in your compatibility, then it's going to be about fascination. I'm fascinated by this person. There's something magical. They're not really good looking, but I can't stop being attracted to them. I don't know why. What's happening? It's something, wow, and I love it. It's magical, right? And then if it's Pluto, it's sex. It's just this powerful attraction that is like, wow, I can't stop thinking about them, but like I want to merge with them. Pluto is this um, powerful force that just wants to obliterate the two people and create one thing. And you just want to come together. So in one book on Synastry, the author says, if you're married and if your spouse meets someone whose Pluto is within 3 degrees of your partner's Venus, get ready for the divorce because, right?
Wow.
I mean, she's making a joke, but that attraction is so potent that it supersedes logic. So, yeah, I like to use the outer planets. Of course, one planet doesn't give us the whole picture. So we have we created a software called Delano Pro for professional astrologers and relationship counselors. And in that, we analyze hundreds and hundreds of influences based on Carl Jung, the studies that he did that showed, sun-moon connections and other sun, Venus, and so forth. That's straight synastry, to the ancient Vedic techniques, the Kutas, Raju Veda, Dina, and so forth, and how to bring them to the modern day. Because in the ancient system, you only look at the moon. But when we look at the Kutas, we look at the moon and the Lagna.
Okay.
So you may have great Kutas from the moon, right? There's a good sort of emotional compatibility. But if they're very poor from the Lagna, it means your living circumstances may suffer. You may not be able to actually, your schedules will be different. Your timing is off. The physical situation in your household will be misaligned. Because, right, if your lagnas are misaligned, think about it. Let's say your lagnas are 212, then every bhava is 212. Your second houses are 212. Your third house is your house of children is 212, right? So the lagna becomes very important. And part of the reason they didn't use it in the old days is because people didn't typically know their birth time.
Right.
And it took a lot of work to calculate a horoscope with the precise declination and latitude, longitude, and what time was the sunrise, and blah blah blah, so you can get the correct chart. Now we have computers. We pull up, a Parashara's light or Jagannath Hora or Sri Jyoti star, and boom, you've got it. So so in the modern times, we use the kutas, but we use the lagna as well, and to trying to paint a picture.
Right. With the Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, right? It's usually with the Venus that or it's with other planets too, you
Every
feel
planet.
the
So
connection.
I can give you an example. So
Sure.
why don't I share my screen here? These are some horoscopes, but let's go to, I'll just go into the Delano software itself. So we call that the influence of the outer planets, namely Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, but also Rahu and Ketu. Not outer planets, the invisible grahas. They are the chaya graha because they're not, Rahu is not visible to the naked eye, nor are the other three planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So I call them a part of the component of karmic glue, meaning they create an unseen kind of compulsion towards the other partner. It can be positive, it can be negative, but compulsions usually have to be dealt with. And so here you see we use Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and we give it a score, a value based on our proprietary algorithms to show how much Uranus is in this relationship, how much Neptune is there, how much Pluto. Now, for this couple, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of karmic glue. But to answer your question, we look at Venus, we look at the moon, we look at Lagna, and we look at the sun. And you can look at other factors as well. If you want to use the Dada Kataka, you can use other factors. We limit ourselves to those four because we feel it gives us enough data on the relationship. So for this couple, this is Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter. They she recently passed away. They were married for over 50 or 60 years, I think. Happily married. And so I wanted to see, what is it in their chart that made them happily married? And they actually have very low karmic glue. So they don't have the compulsive factor, but they have great they get a very high relationship score, very high long-term score. If you're not familiar with my software, anything above 50% is positive.
Okay.
But what they have very low is what we call sizzle, which is a sexual compatibility.
Okay.
And it tells you, and that's maybe part of the low karmic glue, because there wasn't that I would say, I don't know the couple, right? But if I were their counselor, I would say, look, you guys get along great, but probably your sensuality and sexuality is not high on your list of priorities. And they were Christian, right? So they probably believed, sex is only for procreation. And of course, many conservative religions, be they Christian or, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever, they have that attitude. And so for them, it wasn't a problem, the fact that they had a low score on the sexuality, because everything else is very good. So did that answer your question? You asked me, what do we look at for Uranus, Neptune, Pluto?
Yes. Yes. You're saying sun, mostly Venus, sun, and moon.
Venus, Sun, Moon, and the Lagna.
And the Lagna, right.
Yeah. And how they configure with those. And if there's a lot, so this is not a good example. I can probably show you a good example. Let's see if I go to Joanne.
So this software is launched already, so anyone can access it?
Anyone can access it. Yes. It's you can do it monthly, you can buy it outright.
Okay.
And just own it, or you can do it for a month or for 6 months. Here's and I didn't, intend this to be an advertisement for the software, but there are some things I can show you here that are very easy to see. So you see the karmic glue with this couple is 5 stars. They have a tremendous amount of compulsion. And so when Paul Newman met Joanne Woodward, this is an old-time Hollywood couple who remain married for the rest of their lives, which is very rare in Hollywood.
Wow.
And But when they met, he was already married with a child. And the moment they met, he decided to leave his wife, and that was it. Like it was done. And look at the Pluto Venus connection they have.
Oh, wow. That's pretty close. Yeah.
Powerful, powerful. They are within a degree of each other. If I go to, let me go to the planets in cusp so you can see. Her Venus is at 20 degrees Aquarius. No, it's the other way around. So his Venus is at 21 Sagittarius, and her Pluto is at 24 Gemini. So it's exactly opposite.
Oh, okay.
So even that opposition creates a powerful sambandha. So yeah, so there was a compulsion there where they felt that they had to come together. Now, if all there is compulsion, if all there is Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Rahu, Ketu, but no fundamental personality connection, then it's not going to go well. After the
Right.
first 3 to 6 months, you're going to start to fight, and have problems. That's why, like I said, you want to look at everything. You want to look at personality, and see these guys have an amazing relationship score, 99%. This is a long-term score is also very high. It's supposed to be
Yeah.
only be 100, but I've given like bonuses for some very rare couples. So if you see more than 100%, that's super rare. And so forth. So, yeah.
So core connect, so like karmic glue, meaning whenever these three outer planets or Rahu Ketu are really close to their prominent planets, right? So it means
Correct.
there's some karma that needs to either clear or they need to finish it off.
Correct. Exactly. It creates that subconscious drive, like you don't even know. And the way I see it in a lot of clients is it's almost like their DNA wants to merge. It's like their ancestors are speaking through them. Like my grandfather and her grandmother want to get together through us. So in a way, like we're puppets, so it's these unseen forces. But again, karmic glue is not enough. And in fact, it can be a problem if you get together and that's all you have.
Right, and there's a lot of time I noticed, like with a lot of people, because I'm like really interested in relationship synastry, and I really enjoy it. So I just like noticed whenever there's like K2 connection, somehow it's really a lot of suffering.
K2 connection, you know what we found is a K2 connection to Venus can create a very powerful sambandha between couples, and it doesn't make sense. A separative influence, it creates the desire for moksha, the desire for transformation through burning, that karma. But a lot of long-term couples have K2 Venus. Let me see. I think this couple may also have it. No, this couple does not have a K2 Venus. They don't need it. They have everything else.
Yes.
But yeah, K2 combined with other factors like Lagna and so forth can create problems. But K2 with Venus actually can create stickiness in the relationship. That's what I found. That's been a surprise.
Interesting. That's quite interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I usually see like if it's K2 Sun, could be a little stressful, or like you said, K2 maybe on Lagna.
K2 Sun. So if my K2 is on your Sun, being with me will challenge your fundamental identity, who you are. We'll have to rethink who you are. But it is, again, it's a karmic glue, and it's a compulsive force, and you have to see if you have things to back it up. Otherwise, it will create a sense of alienation. Yeah.
So according to like with this software, right? Like the way you were showing me numbers, right? So for example, if somebody goes online and they just like, I go and I just input the information, which ones do we look at the most important? And if like
that's a great question.
Yeah.
The most important is the total relationship score. Because it factors everything, it does all the work for you. It takes everything into account and gives you the compatibility. This is the compatibility. The long-term measures a specific thing, which is, will this couple be happy 10 years or longer? What is the likelihood? So if it's very high relationship, but maybe 15% on the long term, it could mean a couple that gets along great, but that is not likely to last more than 10 years happily together.
Okay.
So there are those nuances, because sometimes you'll meet a couple, they're on their second or third year, and they're like, yeah, we're doing great. And then you meet them 2 years later and like, what happened? Oh, we're divorced.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So we want to measure the durability, the toughness of the relationship as well, and how likely it is to be a long-term winner. So these are the two most important scores. And then you can come up here and also look at what the modern methods are: synastry.
Okay.
Ancient methods are the kutas, the ancient Vedic techniques. And you can see this couple has 5 stars in both of them. So come on.
Okay.
This is very rare.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's really long-term sticking. So they, yeah, total
And
sizzle.
nowadays, the sizzle score is going to be very important, the sexuality score. So if you go to that tab, you will see raw sexual chemistry, which is, those first 6 months, that core attraction, and
Yeah.
then how it lasts over the years. And in most couples, it'll go down. And in this couple, it's like that. But still, if you have enough of the raw chemistry, it's fine.
Nice.
Yeah. And very few couples, we give them a check mark, which we call the best sex of your life, based on
Okay.
factors like Pluto, Venus, and other things that we look at. And if they have all of those things, it's like, wow, that's a special thing that stands out.
So beside Pluto, Venus, and Uranus, which other planets contributing to this sizzle?
Into sizzle?
Yeah.
Well, we want to look at, well, first of all, you can look at the ancient methods and look at the yoni.
Okay.
Yoni kuta is very important. And if there's enemy yoni, that can create problems. And what enemy yoni does is, I've talked to couples who have this. I've been in relationships that have this, and what they say is that they're like, "No, we have sex all the time." But I ask, like, how satisfied are you?
Yeah.
And when they really think about it, they realize the reason we're having sex so much is we're trying to find this fulfillment that's elusive, that's not there.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you have same yoni, it's like you might have sex once a month, and that's all you need, because you're so fulfilled from it. Like, it just lasts, it stays with you.
Right.
You carry it with you. And I mean, it how often you have sex, that's another thing. You can look at the outer planets, how much compulsion and karmic glue there is. If there's more, you probably have sex more. If there's less, like in Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter, they probably had sex once a year. So
Yeah.
okay, but that's okay, they lasted a long time. And for them, it wasn't important.
Yeah.
So the quality, now there's a difference between if it's from the lagna or from the moon. If the yoni is inimical from the moon, then there will be kind of a your sex life may become something that one or both partners hold hostage, like, well, I'm not going to give you sex because you said this to me earlier, or like it becomes a point of conflict.
Right.
And other things may be fine, but in modern society, in modern couples, that is a big deal. So a lot of people, when they go here, they go straight to the sizzle and look, okay, how is the sex life, because that's very important to us.
Right.
And then we look at other factors, including how the malefics and the benefics influence the planets of sex. How does my Jupiter aspect your Venus, for example? Or even on a more basic level, does it aspect your moon? If my
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter aspects your moon, then on a very basic level, you feel good around me.
Right.
I make you feel good. And you don't know why. It's like, oh, I like that guy,
Yeah.
But if my Saturn sits on your moon, then I'm going to be a little heavy and you're going to feel a little worn out every time you talk to me. And there's no like obvious reason. We might be both perfectly nice people, but just when you're around me, my Saturn's on your moon, you're going to feel a little depressed, a little, like you're under a shadow, like it's raining every time we're together. And that has an effect on the sex life long term, right? So if you feel criticized every time I'm with you, like my Saturn stays on your sun, for example, there's going to be a lot of criticism. Then, after a while, that can create problems. You're not doing it right, or hey, right, and so there are a lot of factors that go into it. Even the very basic techniques of Vedic astrology interpretation, malefics and benefics, influencing your planets and mine.
Yeah, so it's like the Saturn person criticizing the Sun person, right? Because it would be, that's how
Yes,
it would be in that synastry, right?
typically that's the direction. And the thing you have to understand in that case is, let's say my Saturn does influence your sun, and we actually have a whole report section, and we give remedies.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
If my Saturn is hitting your sun, for example, then let's see, Saturn's where's the Saturn sun? Well, for this couple, it's not hitting, so it's not under the remedies. But
Okay.
they do have Saturn Lagna, and so it gives you some simple ideas on what to do. Like Saturn Moon, for example, is great because one way to deal with that is for both of us to do penance together. Like both of us, for example, to save money. Okay, or both of us, let's both go on a diet together, so that I'm not criticizing your weight, you're not criticizing my weight. Let's both do this thing together, and we can help each other, right? So we
Right.
could put that energy to use, rather than nitpicking all the time.
This is really interesting and really thorough, actually. That's really cool. With the
We spent
remedies.
4 or 5 years on this, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
this looks really good. What was the deal breaker, Simon? I saw a deal breaker somewhere on top. What's deal
yes,
breaker?
there are things we call deal breakers. So there are about there are over a dozen deal breakers and a dozen deal makers. Let me see what that is. They are shortcut ways to see if a couple has kind of the cheat code to have a good relationship. And the more deal makers you have, more deal makers than deal breakers, the better. So, for example, one of them is what Carl Jung found, which is the most common combo in couples that were together for a long time, was a sun-moon combo.
Okay.
So we simply made that into a deal maker where if my sun is on your moon or your sun is on my moon, so there's two ways to have it, then that's a deal maker because it's a bit of a cheat code. It's like, oh, okay. And we call that the soulmate combo. And we find it a lot in parent-child relationships, or in even in student relationships, people who have been together in a past lifetime, and in some way they're soulmates.
Right.
Traditional, like you're the only one for me and I'm the only one for you, but like we're supposed to be together for some purpose.
Right.
So that's an example of a deal maker. And an example of a deal breaker, I got to go back to my algorithm sheet, but let's see what would be well, like having enemy yoni.
Okay.
Like having an enemy yoni nowadays, that would be, I think I put that as a half a deal breaker, because you see there's 0.5 as well. Because right off the bat, there's going to be disagreements and issues in the sex life.
Right.
And that plays into everything else. Yeah. So
Yeah, I like your software. I think it's really very well done because gives all the information, all the type, like, ancient and synastry, and you're adding all the outer planets as well, which is really cool because it's more comprehensive.
And we also look at timing. So if the couple is both running the same dasha, for example, or if there's one is in the Shah Sandhi, like well, they're both deceased, I believe. But um, you know, so we could advise the couple, hey, you're about to go into a new dasha, so there's some changes. But because you're going to go into Venus and she's in Venus, that it's likely to be good and blah blah blah, you know, stuff like that. Um, you know, one question that I got, I made a video, a YouTube video, while a couple weeks ago, and someone said, Simon, this is great, but how do you know if two people are meant to be together? And that was
Yeah,
a really good question, because I'm taking you to this site. Every day, there are 385,000 babies born every day. This is the number of births in January up to now. 9 million already born this year. And it's only January 24th. So
whoa.
out of all the, is that crazy?
Yeah.
There are so many people on the planet, so many charts, and so many, you know, if you were to run this software, you would find great compatibility with so many people around the planet. So
Right.
how do you know what separates it? And it was a great question, and I made a YouTube video about it. I can summarize it here for you if that's interesting to you, or
Yes,
you can.
please.
Okay, so I gave 4 techniques, and these are not. Um, I think one of them you can find in books, but most of them you're not going to find in books. The first technique is a KP technique. It's from Krishnamurti Padati that, as far as I know, I came up with. Now, if I'm wrong, just, you know, let me know. But I have not seen it anywhere, not even in Krishnamurti's writing. So the technique is like this: if the 7th cuspal sublord of the person, so let's take Prince Harry, for example. Prince Harry's 7th cuspal sublord is the sun. Now, what is a cuspal sublord? It's so think of a Rashi as a large chunk of space, right? 30 degrees.
Yeah.
A nakshatra is a smaller chunk of space. It's 13 degrees, 20 minutes. And then there is a sub of a nakshatra, and that is an even smaller chunk of space. And the rule is the smaller the chunk, the more accurately it describes the situation, right? Because if we say that, for example, you're Kanya Lagna, okay, you're Virgo Lagna, that applies to 1 out of 12 people on the planet.
Right.
But if we say, let's say you are Hasta Lagna, now that is 1 out of every 27 people on the planet. It's more specific. And if we say, oh, but the sublord of your Lagna says Mercury, now that's 1 out of every 250 people on the planet. And so it makes it more specific for you. So that's a short explanation of what a sublord is. And I do talk about sublords in my book Gambler's Dharma, because you can use them to predict the outcomes of sports and other things. But in this case, we're going to predict if you are fated to be together. So if the 7th house cuspal sublord of one chart, in this case Prince Harry, is configured with the lagna of the other person, meaning it sits in the lagna or owns the lagna, then there is a powerful sambandha between the people. And if we look at Megan, you can see that Sun is in fact in her lagna. Now, it doesn't have to go both ways. It doesn't work the other way around. But that's one basic technique. There is another technique, which is, again, I don't know if people use it, but I'll share it with you.
Sure.
The name, the sound, the namapada of the 7th cusp So think about it. Like the first cusp is the lagna. It's who you are. The seventh cusp is who your partner is. If the sound of your seventh cusp is the sound of the name of the person, then that creates a sambandha. Again, this is something that I've worked with. And I was looking at these charts, and in his seventh cusp, Kaki Kuganga Cha is Cha. Now her name is not Cha, so that doesn't apply. And it doesn't apply from her chart to his as well. But if you take the seventh lord, Prince Harry's seventh lord, and I've got both North and South Indian. I'm not sure which you prefer. Do you use North or South?
I like North.
North. Okay, I use the North as well primarily, but I have both.
Yeah.
The seventh lord is Mercury. Mercury is in Magha Nakshatra, and the sounds of Magha Nakshatra are ma, mi, mu, me. And Mercury is in the sound me.
Which is Megan.
Yes, think about how rare that is, right?
Very
Which
interesting.
means that when he met her, not only is his seventh cuspal sublord in her lagna, so something clicked already, but when she said her name, something else clicked, and he's like, "Oh my god, I gotta make her my wife." The irony is that their compatibility is not great. They are,
Interesting.
yeah. If I pull them up in Delano Pro here, let me just pull them up. Meghan Markle, I forget which one. I was playing with her birth time. Let's use the first one. And we put Prince Harry here. Look at that, 1.5 stars. Not a great. Let me make sure it's the right. Yeah, Cancer Lagna. Okay. If we go to the total relationship score, wow, look at this.
32%.
Very long term, 0. The likelihood that they last 10 years or more happily together. Now, the key word is happily. Some couples do stay together, but they're miserable.
Right. Yeah.
So if I were to make a prediction, I'd say, guys, you're not likely to stay together long term, but happily. But they have this incredible thing where he was absolutely fascinated with her when they first met. Now, there is another technique, which is very basic synastry, which is if a couple has similar combinations in their charts. Prince Harry has Saturn moon opposite. So there's a strong sense of a desire to be of service, to be a martyr to a cause. We call this the school teacher combo. Someone who will sacrifice their own needs for the needs of others. Well, Meghan Markle also has Saturn moon conjunct.
Oh, interesting. She has Saturn moon. Okay.
Yeah. And so, and particularly because Saturn is her seventh lord, there will be sacrifices that she will make in her relationship. In fact, they're the first and the seventh lord. So that creates a kind of like, oh, we're in this together vibe. Like, let's say one person has exalted Venus and the other person has exalted Venus, or a lot of exalted planets. There is a kind of a similarity in the vibe. Or if I have Saturn in the lagna and you have Saturn in the lagna, it could be different lagnas, but that creates oh, we're both Saturn people, we get each other.
Yeah.
Kind of. So these are techniques that go beyond compatibility, right? We don't measure them in Delano. They are, I mean, we will eventually, we will program these eventually, but because we're constantly improving on it. But
And there's
these are a few
yeah.
things, yeah, out of the 300,000 babies born every day that can single out the person you're supposed to be with. Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Interesting. No, sorry. So there are a lot of people like who stay because like together because of culture, because of kids, because of families, society. they may not be very happy together, but they're just kind of pulling it along. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And there are people who really want to stand up for their needs and really want that happiness and would really have the courage to, you know, just stand up for that, right? And look for, I mean, it's just, there are a lot of people who are not very happy in relationship and they just kind of go along because it works or they're in comfort, in that comfort level, right?
So I do a lot of do sessions for Indian couples, and
Yeah,
many of the ones whom I read for will never get divorced, but
yeah,
some of them are unhappy. And
yeah,
so we look at, okay, what works in your chart?
yes,
Maybe you have some Sun Venus connection. Sun
yeah,
Venus is an attraction to the physical beauty of the person.
okay,
So we can go, okay, you guys think each other is hot. So maybe every Friday, dress up, look as
yeah,
hot as you can,
yeah.
tuck in your stomach if you're the guy, put on makeup if you're the, and go out on a date. Rediscover that aspect of yourselves.
Yeah,
Or you can focus on what doesn't work. Let's say they have Saturn Sun. Saturn Sun, like my Saturn on your Sun or her Saturn on his Sun, they need time and space apart. Think about
mm,
Saturn Sun. They're the farthest from each other in terms of visible. So they do best when they are at a distance and they begin to miss each other.
mm,
But when they're together, what happened? Sun kicked Saturn out of out of heaven, kicked them as far away as possible into the shadows. So for these people, having your own room, having your own hobby, going traveling with friends who are not your husband. Don't go with your husband. Go with somebody else, right? And over time, that creates a sense of missing each other, right? So you can focus on the positives, you can focus on what's not working, and then work with it. And these couples may never be like thrilled to be around each other, but I remember one lady came. She's been married over 30 years. She'll never get divorced, but she said, Simon, tell me something to do. And I said, you need to travel, find your best friend. And she said, actually, last year I took a trip with my son and we get along great. And it was the best time I've had in 30 years. She said,
wow,
there you go. Give yourself the gift of making yourself happy and your partner will be happy. Because if you're
yeah,
miserable, they pick it up and so forth. So there are things we can do even in relationships that aren't working, in which there's no, you've known each other for 30 years. You've farted around each other. The romance is gone.
right.
There are still things you can do to make it better, spiritual things as well. Um, uh, yeah, and like I said, every relationship's a fingerprint, so it depends on what's working in the charts and what's not.
Exactly. Maybe focusing on what you can appreciate about the other person.
Uranus, you brought up Uranus earlier. Uranus creates a sudden impulse to to be together, but it just as suddenly that passion disappears.
Right.
And Uranus, in its higher sense, rules deep friendship. And so if you have a lot of Uranus in your charts, what you want to actually cultivate is a liking of the other person as a friend first, before you even talk about lover, or like, do I even like you as a person? And
Yeah.
to start having those philosophical conversations and actually being friends and being there for each other. And then in becoming friends, you can actually start to kid each other a little bit and things become looser when all the pressure of, oh, we have to be husband and wife is taken out. Because Uranus is very scientific, it's very objective, and it rules these kind of platonic friendships where there's no sexuality. And if that's what you have going on, then cultivate it, and it'll bring its own gifts to your relationship.
Yeah. Very well said. Yeah, I agree. It's the friendship, the basic foundation. Yeah.
Right? Very
Yeah.
important. So
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk for days on this, but this is
I know.
it's a little taste, and I'm happy to answer questions. I answer questions on my YouTube channel, so if people want to go there and type up some questions, I'm happy to.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Simon, and thank you for sharing this program and walking me through this too. So this is really, really very well done and very comprehensive, right? And it's easy to use as well. So yeah, thank you so much for showing me and learning more about compatibilities today.
My pleasure. It's something that is a passion of mine. Though there are two, the first and the second chakra drives are, get the money and get the honey. And as much spiritual stuff and mantras that we talk about, and all the very exquisite, intricate things that are available through the horoscope, inevitably when a client comes to you, the things on their mind typically most of the time are the money and the honey.
Yeah.
And the job, that's then the next chakra up, right? The hierarchy of needs, but it usually starts with that. And before compatibility, I focused on the money, and now I'm focusing on the how to find the honey in your life.
Good one. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's what's most needed these days. Thank you. Thank you so much,
Hariom.
Simon. It's always a
Okay.
pleasure. Yeah.
Hariom. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.